a little holiday gift from south of the border. We'll talk about that on today's Hot Zone.
This is the Hot Zone. Engaging with the news in a whole new way, international war correspondent Chuck Holton brings insight into areas of crisis and lets you help those affected.
Hey folks, Chuck Holton here. How's it going? I hope you had a great Thanksgiving. Down in Central America, they've been busy over the holiday weekend. They don't celebrate Thanksgiving, but they've certainly given the citizens of the United States something to be thankful about. And that is that in between El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras, they have rounded up more than 1,000 suspected gang members, and they've got warrants for thousands more. They're really cracking down on gang activity, especially from the hyper-violent MS-13 and Barrio 18 gangs that really are transnational criminal organizations. They operate all the way from Central America to Europe and the United States. They are involved in murder and human trafficking and arms smuggling and drug smuggling and everything else. And they are hyper-violent gang, not just among themselves, like many gangs are, but even among, just random people that they come by. Now, I've done a lot of reporting on MS-13 and Barrio 18 over the last couple of years. As a matter of fact, I went down to El Salvador and made a report about it. So we're not just talking about kidnappers and drug smugglers here. There's a lot of human trafficking that goes on in these gangs, and not just sex trafficking, but also trafficking of migrants and taking advantage of the people who are trying to migrate through Central America up into the United States. And so this is Operation Regional Shield, they called it. Got a lot of help from the United States, got a lot of signals intelligence and other things, I suspect. And they have picked up, just in Honduras alone, we're not just talking about drug, gangbangers, stuff like that. We're talking about prosecutors, lawyers, people in the government, other law enforcement officials, deputy police chief, stuff like that. We know that these countries are tremendously corrupt, unbelievably corrupt in some cases. In many cases, as I have worked in that area, talking to the local people, they say, look, if you get robbed, you don't go to the police because they'll just rob you again. And I went down there, as I said, a couple of years ago and made this report about MS-13 and Barrio 18 and what El Salvador is trying to do with America's help in trying to rehabilitate these guys, because putting them in jail isn't enough. They can still operate from jail, and they don't get out of the gang just by putting them in jail, because the gang is in there too. Getting them out of the gang is a very, very difficult thing to do. And yet there is one way that has been successful, and it has to do with Jesus. So take a look at this.
They are the ISIS of the Western Hemisphere, the vicious Salvadoran gang known as MS-13. From brutal beginnings on the streets of LA, they've grown to become a transnational criminal organization and a threat to U.S. national security. Their presence is growing across the U.S. and increasingly in Central America. Our Frontlines team went to El Salvador, where MS-13 began, to find out how the gang's leaders managed to run their international criminal enterprise, even from behind bars.
La MS es una pandilla muy fuerte, muy bien estructurada, ¿verdad? Con redes quizás a nivel centroamericano, a nivel del Caribe y de Europa incluso. Prácticamente desde las cárceles se ha estado operando toda la parte criminal y delictiva, ¿verdad?
Sí, ellos tienen control con muchos gangs.
This gang is more deadly than any other gang. The other gangs used to run by rules, and this one don't run by rules. They just don't care. Yeah, they're brutal.
Wedged in between Guatemala and Honduras,
tiny El Salvador has beautiful tropical scenery and miles of Pacific beaches that could easily make it a sunseeker's paradise. But tourism here has suffered for decades because El Salvador has gotten a reputation as one of the most violent countries on earth. Starting with the brutal civil war that followed a socialist coup in 1979, repression and crime exploded like one of the country's many volcanoes, spewing death as criminal elements took root and grew with little to stand in their way. Since that time, hundreds of thousands of Salvadorians have fled to the United States, and some banded together in the 1980s and formed a gang in Los Angeles, which would become one of the most brutal transnational criminal organizations of all time, MS-13. As gangbangers in LA got arrested and deported back to El Salvador, their horrific acts of violence followed. Today, El Salvador's homicide rate is 3 times that of Mexico, and gang culture dominates life across the country. We're at a coffee processing plant up in the mountains of El Salvador, just pretty close to the Honduran border. And I just want to point out how the violence in this country has permeated every aspect of life. Even the people who are harvesting coffee have to have armed guards to protect them just from the general lawlessness, not necessarily from any particular gang, but just because there's so much lawlessness here in this country.
Como sabemos, a nivel del país, ya ellos están organizados en colonias, cantones, caseríos, barrios. Pero tenemos que ver que detrás de estos grupos de jóvenes que están en cantones, caseríos y colonias y barrios, yo creo, en mi pensar, hay alguien grande detrás de. Por eso, al final yo pienso que los jóvenes de estos lugares son víctimas.
The gang has grown throughout Central America and now has a presence in over 200 major U.S. cities, spreading their brutal tactics to places like Long Island and suburban D.C. The Trump administration has made eradicating MS-13 a major priority.
But I have a simple message today for every gang member and criminal alien. We will find you, we will arrest you, we will jail you, and we will deport you.
This is causing great concern here in El Salvador.
Hay muchos de ellos, ¿verdad?, que vienen de allá y que tienen órdenes de captura aquí. Esos definitivamente inmediatamente son capturados y son remitidos a los jueces competentes para sus procedimientos penales respectivos.
On the edge of this otherwise sleepy little town sits a maximum security prison dedicated exclusively to MS-13. Built for 800, but now holding more than 2,500. Here, the guards stay on the outside, and prisoners run everything inside the walls.
Y ahorita tenemos ya 38,000, ¿verdad? Entonces, y resulta que nuestra capacidad instalada está para alrededor de unos, lo más tranquilamente, de 8 a 10,000 privados. Y tenemos 38. La gran mayoría de cabecillas están detenidos aquí en nuestro país. Entonces, lo que ha significado es que la concentración de ellos en las cárceles, con grandes cantidades de gente y con espacios donde por las condiciones mismas no se puede ejercer un control absoluto, en un momento determinado tuviéramos que definir espacios o cárceles específicamente para cada una de las pandillas.
This is a prison at a place called Apanteos, about an hour outside of San Salvador, the capital city here. And it's a very overcrowded prison. It was built for about 1,800 people, but there are over 5,000 prisoners inside. And this is the birthplace of a program called Yo Cambio. You see it painted on the wall here. It means I change. And it's a holistic program to take this from being a place of just punishment to a place of rehabilitation. They deal with things like spiritual fitness, academics, health, all sorts of classes and that sort of thing that help these guys gain some skills and some life skills that will help them once they get out.
So you cambio your classes, okay, and you learn 2 things: emotional abilities, like tolerance, patience, teamwork, empathy, and cognitive abilities, like read and write, learn English, learn French, mental health. But the emotional one is the most important one because that you carry it with through all your life. So the average educational level is about 2nd grade. The guys behind me are former gang members, really violent gang members. Half of them are Christians, and half of them have given their lives to Jesus. Okay. And that is the key to their transformation.
Start with the heart and then work on the head and everything else, right?
On the spirit, then the heart, and then the head, yes.
Yes. Warden Maria Baños gave us a tour of the 11 cell blocks that make up her prison, including one dedicated exclusively to gang members from MS-13. Another block holds those who have renounced the gang, a virtual death sentence in this country.
We got these people here that they don't want nothing to do with that gang no more.
How hard will it be for them when they get out of here?
Here, especially here in El Salvador, it's really difficult because it's controlled by the 2 major gangs, it's MS and 18, right? Mm-hmm. So you gotta imagine, see, if you come from a group and you desert them like they say it, the pay of that is death. And if it's not you that they'll get your family, trying to erase all meaning of you. That's what they do. So a lot of these people, what they do is migrate. They go somewhere else. It's not just, I'm not talking about literally just the United States, but Mexico, Guatemala, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, anywhere. That's what's happening here.
En las personas que han pertenecido en las pandillas.
She's telling me that this situation is kind of worrying in that the United States is collecting up all these MS-13 gang members and shipping them back to El Salvador because they don't have the capacity to have a bunch more people in prison. And she's hoping that there will be programs that will help try to keep these guys out of the gangs once they get back here. The United States government actually provides some help to this prison and the prison system here in El Salvador by providing some equipment and things like that. I guess the concept is that it's cheaper for us to help them here, prevent people from getting into a life of crime and coming to the United States, than it would be to do what we're doing now, which is arrest them in the United States and deport them back here.
Yo creo que sí es importante decir de que de alguna manera hemos estado en problema, pero que sí tenemos, ¿verdad?, bien clarito y bien definido cuáles son las líneas de acción.
As the Trump administration begins to round up and deport MS-13 gang members from the U.S., the government here in El Salvador is hiring more police officers in anticipation of the problems these gang members may cause once they return to their home soil. But for the people of Ciudad Barrios, their best hope remains with the children.
Si el niño viene a la casa, recibe regaño, en la escuela recibe maltrato, ¿para dónde va a ir entonces? Para mí los jóvenes son el cambio. Los jóvenes, si los cultivamos, ellos pueden hacer el cambio.
From El Salvador, I'm Chuck Holton for NRA TV.
President Trump has promised to find, arrest, jail, and deport MS-13 members across the United States. It's a far cry from his predecessor, who allowed them into our country by the thousands, many of them posing as unaccompanied minors. Those who oppose his plan to seal our porous border need to ask themselves, should torture, beheadings, murder, extortion, drugs, and terror have a place in our America? Because that's what MS-13 has in store for our country.
All right, folks, thanks for watching The Hot Zone. A lot is still going on around the world. We're going to take it easy over the next month as we slide into the holidays. I'm going to try not to travel a whole lot, but I am going to keep you up to date with stuff that's going on around the world based on my contacts and just the reporting I've done in the past. And so I hope you'll keep watching, share it, and like it, and we'll see you back here next time.
The Hot Zone is produced by Amy Holton and Livefire Media. Copyright 2019.